Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Canarsie. And listen, I'm sure that what I'm about to say is going to inflame a lot of people. And like I'm going to say at the top, I'm not being specific. If I had a gripe with one individual, I'm going to say their name. I think you all know me well enough by now. But there's been stuff that's been going on for the last few weeks. And I've kept real quiet about it, at least publicly. Those who listen to my podcast are probably going to understand, what I'm talking about. But, I have this philosophy in life, and it's either toe the line or get the fuck out of the water. And that's really what this is about. Let me preface by saying, when any content creator decision that they make is their own business. I don't tell anybody how to do their stuff. They're not going to tell me how to do theirs. Everyone has the right to do whatever they want. Everyone has the right to choose which person they like and which person that they don't. As far as I'm concerned, I could give a fuck less. That's just me. But I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about something that I see a lot on YouTube. And it's this entire informant saga that's going on. First of all, as most of you know, I'm the first one who ever challenged any informant on YouTube. Nobody else did it. For almost 8 years, I was the only one that did it before it became the popular thing to do, because that's what it's become. And that doesn't invalidate anybody who's done it, because everybody has their own unique reasons for doing so. But in the last year, we've seen all kinds of people come out and, they begin to dismantle them, albeit, in the similar fashion that I used to actually do. The yelling, the this, the that, that's what I did. I wasn't always the, here's the documents kind of guy. That wasn't always me. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I did it any differently, because I didn't for a long time. So I'm not saying I'm better or worse than anybody else. I believe in being fair. Call a spade a spade. The problem that I do see, more often than not, is content creators just spewing obscenities at informants with little to no evidence to give the viewers a basis for their opinion. It does you no good to call them homos and all kinds of names when you're not even going to back up your stance. Like, why did George Washington get wooden teeth? Well, I don't know. I just don't like them. Fuck them. That's basically what you're getting out of a lot of content creators. It's not all, because there are some good content creators that are very informative in what they do. But there's a lot of other ones who just don't give any background information. They just say it to say it because it gets clicks and views. And that's the fucking truth. Whether people want to admit to that or not, that's the fucking truth. Not liking them is one thing. But if you aren't going to invest the time to show your viewers or to teach your listeners A through Z, then all you're really doing is spewing nonsense. Mob Rats Exposed, good example of this, does a good job dismantling informants, whether you like him, hate him, or not. He is entertaining in that facet. He uses their words against them. There is nothing like seeing an informant say something that we all know is a lie and then watching them get made fun of it because of it. That's hilarious. Whether you like them or not, it's hilarious. That's easy to digest on a visceral level. You cannot go from platforming every fucking rat in the existence and then on day 5 turn right around and go, well, I hate all rats. Because no, you don't. If you have platformed every fucking rat, then the truth is you don't really hate rats. You just want views. And that's the fucking truth. And listen, nothing wrong with views at all. If that's how you need to get them, then that's what you're going to do. But don't align yourself with hating rats, because you really don't hate them. Okay, that's just the truth. And honestly, you have no basis for hating them. You platformed them, right? So you didn't have a problem with it beforehand. You don't know anybody in the life. You haven't been directly impacted by informants. You don't have any friends who got arrested because of rats. So in many ways, you're taking a stance that you really don't even fucking believe in. Now, before anybody cherry picks what I just said, because some people are going to listen to some of that and run 12 different ways. So please do me the honor, or at least the respect of listening to what I have to say. If you want to platform an informant, that's fine by me. In fact, I'm going to tell you this, and this may upset a lot of you, but I'm just going to be honest about it. I have more respect for an individual who comes out of the gate and says, I'm going to have informants on my show, and I'm friendly with them. I have more respect for somebody who does that and stands by that stance than for somebody who every 3 days seems to switch who they like and who they don't. Whether you like it or not, that's the fucking truth. If you stand by what you say, and listen, we've all made mistakes. I don't think there's anybody on planet Earth that hasn't made mistakes. I myself have. I've been very honest about that. They like to throw that at me, but I've always been honest about it, never hid from it. But since that day, it's been this stance, and that's the way that I will continue to be. But I have more respect for somebody who says, hey, you know what? I'm friends with informants. I like talking to them. Cool. That's your thing. Doesn't have to be my thing. But at least you stand by what you mean, not like the people running around every 3 days. Oh, I love this rat. Oh, now I hate all rats. Like, you can't. Listen, you don't have a stance on rats. You're doing shit because you want views. And like I just said, before anybody gets upset with me saying it, that's just the truth. If that's how you want to get views, fine. But don't sit there and claim that you have that stance when history shows us you don't. Okay? Just being honest. Just being honest. History is not once. History is a repetitive action that happens over and over and over and over again. And so the point I'm just making is that for people who want to take up the stance of taking on informants, do me a favor. Stop right now if you're not going to use their words against them. Stop right now if you refuse to use paperwork. And stop right now if you're not going to educate your listeners or yourself. You do yourself no good by sitting there spewing obscenities without telling people why. I just don't fucking like rats. Okay, well, tell me 10 things that this informant lied about on the stand. Give me a factual basis. You can't and you don't. And just because you say X, Y, and Z doesn't make it the case. Facts, logic, and paperwork do not lie. You have to look into the case. You have to assimilate what took place in order to really get a bearing on the lies that have been told. And I'll be the first to tell you that can go both ways. I don't live in despite what people are going to say about me, I don't live in some alternate fucking reality where mob guys do nothing wrong. Quite the opposite. But the stance that I do take, the stance that I will forever take, is that no man should ever be convicted in the words of somebody else. And I think the majority of society feels that way. Maybe not today. But I've said it before. You have wiretaps? Fine. You've got me on videotape? Fine. But if you don't have a gun and you don't have a direct witness, one guy's narration of those events, especially when he wasn't there, shouldn't count. And I'll give you an example of this. Jimmy Kandra. Did you know that his testimony wasn't even firsthand knowledge? You know, like he wasn't standing there when this one sold drugs. The majority, 85% of his testimony, and these are factual. If you don't believe me and you want to take a beef with me over this, I suggest that you get all of those case files and read it for yourself, and you won't be able to tell me any different. Just being factual. Many of the things, 85% of the things that Jimmy Kandra testified to were fourth and fifth hand accounts. That means he had no direct involvement, no direct knowledge, but was just regurgitating what he heard from other people. Hearing is not seeing. If you don't see it, then it's bullshit. Kandra has lied repeatedly throughout his life about his story. 12 stories, all different. Let's talk about Shia LaBeouf. You know who Shia LaBeouf is, right? He's an actor. Many of you probably don't even know this happened. But Jimmy at one point contacted Shia LaBeouf about his story. LaBeouf was interested in the story, but he did not believe Jimmy's version of events. Because actors do what they call background research, and nothing Jimmy was telling him was accurate. accurate. It was all about Jimmy and how great, big, and powerful of a gangster Jimmy was. So LaBouffe was not interested in Jimmy's bullshit story. He was actually interested in the Bath Avenue story, which contained everybody, but Jimmy couldn't have it that way. And what Jimmy isn't going to tell any of you is he didn't take well to that. And he released an obscenity-laden, more than one threat video directed at Shia LaBeouf. And he said despicable, horrendous things about Shia LaBeouf that weren't even true because he was angry. He threatened to kill an actor. Move ahead many years later, and to enhance his narrative now, he shows a photo of Shia LaBeouf that they were friends, but he's not telling you the whole story. Shia LaBeouf will have nothing to do with him after that. Now, what is disputable is, was Jimmy Kandra a gangster? No, he was not a gangster. He was not even an associate on record. He was a gopher and a hangaround. He's a guy who hung out with other guys who were serious individuals. He made up the lie about Tommy Karate. He got busted on that. So if he's going to lie about Tommy Karate, what else has he lied about? So you can't sit there, whether you're on an informant side of things or whether you're on my side of things. I mean, that's fair. If you're going to lie about that, you're probably going to lie about a lot of things. And that's just reality. And he did it to himself. But yet, if you listen to Jimmy's story, it's always everyone else's fault. It's always Anthony Spiro's fault. Last time I checked, Anthony Spiro was not running through the neighborhood forcing kids at gunpoint to get involved in crime. He made that decision as a human being. That's a decision you made as a man. Just like the decision you made as a man to become a fucking rat. The finger should be pointed at yourself. We talk about responsibility and accountability. Majority of people, when they do something wrong, say, you know what, I got that wrong. I was out of line. I said something about you. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. That's what men do. Instead, it's, he made me do it. He made me. This is what he does. This is what all rats perpetuate. Well, I wouldn't have done it if they wouldn't have done it. You continue to hear how they've changed. Well, let's look at that for 1 second. They've changed. How many of them have been rearrested since they got out? About 90% of them. How many of them have made threats? About 90% of them. How many have abused women? About 90% of them. How many of them are making money off a life that they said they left behind? 100% of them. And listen, they're going to make a dime however they got to get it, right? But you would think if you truly want to be a changed human being, that's history. That's 30 years ago. I don't want nothing to do with this. And it's easy for me to say that, sure. But the true mark of somebody changing is just leaving the shit behind. The second thing that I always hear, well, if you were in their position, you can't say what you would do. Well, yeah, I can, and with relative ease, which I think most of you who are in this genre could say you wouldn't do. Number one, many of you wouldn't be involved in that to begin with. I think we can all agree on that. But number two, I don't think that there's an overwhelming majority that would rat. There's some of you that probably would. But how I like to answer that question is by asking another question. Because this is important. This is something that nobody ever fucking mentions. When did they decide to rat? Isn't it always after they get arrested for getting caught? Name me one informant who one day just woke the fuck up and said, you know what? I'm tired of this life. I'm tired of all the evil shit I've done. I feel bad. I really want to change. And they go down to their local law enforcement or they go to the feds and they tell on themselves. How many of them have done that? I'll wait because we'll be sitting here for the rest of my fucking life waiting for that answer. None of them. It always happens after they've been arrested. That's not doing the right thing. That's not being a hero. They love to tout themselves as heroes. They're not. That is someone who does not want to go to jail. But meanwhile, had zero compunctions about committing their own crimes before they got caught. Everything they did before then, whatever, not a big deal. They chose to get in the car. That car chose to they chose to drive a car that was going to the bank, that was going to rob the bank. The guy driving, okay, I'm going to agree to do this. I'm going to sit there. Everybody gets pinched. Oh, I didn't want to be here. You guys got me in trouble. That's the Jimmy Kandras of the world. They want to point at everybody else and not at themselves. Look at court testimony. I challenge all of you. Go to court testimony. See how many times a rat tries to remove himself out of a fucking murder or a jam and blame it on other people. You wait till my documentary comes out on Gravano. I got shit you're not going to believe in that. But it's from his own mouth. And I'll give you an example. On a Thursday, he sits down with the FBI. The FBI asks him specifically about a murder. He says, no, I don't have any recollection of that. Friday morning, he wakes up and suddenly remembers all the details. How is that possible? How the fuck is that possible? This is what they do. The FBI is just as bad because they enable this behavior. So listen, for those people that choose to like informants, you have every right to do so. I've told many people, and they'll tell you, I said to them, you choose to be with informants, that's your choice. I don't think you're a horrible person. That's a choice I'm not going to make, but that's a choice you make, and I'm whatever. It's not a big deal. Don't ask me to hang out because I'm not going to. So if anybody wants to say I said that, I'm telling you I said it. You have every right to buy what they're selling, hook, line, and sinker. You have every right to believe. But you have to also realize they're lying. There is no reason for them to tell the truth. The government doesn't hold them accountable for the truth. Look at the commission case, Fat Tony Salerno. He wasn't the boss. The government knew it. Giuliani knew it. They had tapes where Salerno was explaining when he's handed a making ceremony list. I don't know any of these people on this fucking name, on these lists. Hand it up to the boss. Let him deal with it. A month later, Vinny the Fish Cafaro comes forward and he tells them Vinny Gigante was the boss of the Genovese crime family. They knew, but they didn't fucking care. Meanwhile, they let Rusty Rastelli go because they heard the commission had thrown the Bonanos off the commission. They didn't have a seat, so you know what? We're not going to indict Rusty Rastelli. So you can't cherry pick. Was Salerno an innocent guy? No. And, the purists, and most of you are going to say, well, if he wasn't a gangster, he wouldn't have found himself in that position. And you would be correct in that statement. I'm not going to argue that statement. But that doesn't justify what happened. You can't justify a fucking liar for somebody having a criminal background or for somebody being who they are. Who they are is one facet. But someone lying about them and then sort of curtailing that by saying, but they were a piece of shit. So you can't do that. Put yourself in that situation. How would you feel? All of the informants on YouTube, only two were anything in the fucking, three were something in the streets. The rest were absolutely fucking nobodies. How about bumbling Bobby Luisi, our favorite fat fuck? He loves to brag. Well, I didn't rat anybody out in Philly. Well, he is a fucking rat. And you mean to tell me that when he proffered with the FBI, they didn't ask him about Philadelphia? They didn't say, hey, Bobby, you know what? You just tell us everything about the fucking Providence guys and the Boston guys. We don't need to know nothing about Philadelphia. You believe that? Do you really believe that? The FBI says, no worries, Bobby. We don't have to talk about Philly. They're your friends. Not a big deal. When informants sit down, they're told out of the gate that they have to know everything, right? Does that mean it happens? No. Take Gravano, for example. He's one of the biggest fucking liars I've ever seen. Does that mean that John Gotti would have been acquitted? No. Frankie Locascio might have been. But that's a story for another day. If Bobby Luisi had known anything of consequence about Philadelphia, believe me, he would have been vomiting pea soup all over the table and jerking off, telling them everything they wanted to know, because that would have gotten Bobby a better deal. Rats are going to give as much as they can, then they will inflate. How many rats have we seen who have admitted that they tailored their testimony to fit the government's need? There was one informant in John Gotti Jr.'s trial who admitted to it twice. Well, I thought the government wanted me to tailor my story to fit their narrative, and that's what he did. And that happens in all cases. It happens in all cases. But believe me, Bobby would have gotten a sweet deal if he told on everybody in South Philadelphia. His stance that he likes to keep portraying to everyone, I didn't tell on them guys. Yeah, okay, Bobby, but it's only because you didn't know anything. Had you known anything, you would have said something. It would have been in your prerogative. The government pays too much money. As long as there is fucking money on the table, guys will fucking rat. If you didn't pay them 6 fucking figures and basically give them a get out of jail free card, they wouldn't talk. I guarantee you, if the laws were changed where they said, listen, we'll give you $25,000, but you're still going to do 75% of your time, you'd see a lot of guys stop ratting real quick. And in some cases, the government makes it too easy. But if you're going to attack informants, you got to be forthright. You got to be accurate. You have to use testimony against them. You have to show intelligence. You have to show where they've been caught lying in cross-examinations. You have to show videos where they've said one thing in one and then lied in another. Otherwise, all you're doing is spewing nonsense. All I've ever asked for is justice, right? So if I get caught, I get caught. If it's overwhelming evidence, okay, so be it. But to have somebody testify against me, from my perspective, isn't how the system should be, but it is the system. They lie. I've proven it for 7 years going on plus, and I'm going to continue to do it. If you have that stance and you want to take them on, let me give you some advice. It's not enough to read about it in a book. It's not enough to read it off your computer screen while you're doing a live. You have to understand the politics of it. You have to understand the players. You have to be able to ascertain fact from fiction. If you're going to interview rats, you have to put your feelings aside and ask tough questions. But nobody ever does. It's softball questions. And before you dog the people that do that, let me explain something. None of them are going to answer tough questions anyway. They wouldn't even bother with you if you were going to have hard terms with them. And I get it. I understand it. And that's exactly why they will never fucking deal with me. Not that I would ever deal with them, because I'm not going to. I won't kiss their ass. I'm not going to play friends with them. But if you align with informants, I don't blame anybody for not asking hard questions. But sometimes you have to. And final, I just want to challenge all of you. Stop believing what they have to say. Panisi's a fucking liar. Luisi's a liar. Gravano, Francis, Calandra, A-Rap, Barella, they're all liars. And the list just goes on and on and on. If you can accept the fact that they lie and you enjoy it for entertainment, I don't blame you. But do yourself a favor. Instead of donating to them, donate to charity. Donate to a charity in their names if you have to, because in truth, that's probably the only good that's ever going to amount in their life at this point, because they can't be honest with themselves. And that's the biggest problem. None of them donate to charity. They donate to their own pockets. Redemption comes when you do something that's bigger than yourself. And none of them are capable of that. Not a single fucking one of them are capable of it. And it's just my opinion. If you're going to chastise informants, find your own creative outlet. Don't copy what everybody else does and try to make it your thing. Find your own way of doing it. But always, always, please use facts and documents. You making up random shit that happened that never did makes you look like a fool and a liar who's cherry picking to make waves. And that makes it harder for the real people that are trying to show injustice that is done. So stop with the whole, I heard this one got hurt, or this one robbed a bank and got caught. This one's kids. Stop it with that. Stop making up shit. If you can't prove it, don't even bring it up. Because all you're doing is impugning the rats. If you're making stuff up that isn't accurate about them, don't say it. Don't say it. Because now you're doing exactly what they do. And I could care less if a rat gets impugned. I really could care less. But if you're not going to use factual things you can back up by saying, well, on page 2, a court testimony, then just don't even waste your time. Or use their words against them. But going on some like fucking diatribe and not explaining to your audience what they've lied about does you no good. Then you just become fodder for like entertainment and nothing more. I never went after any of them for fame or notoriety. I did it because it's what was called for and it was justified. Good men and bad men have gone to prison as a result of their lies. I wouldn't want anyone, not even my worst fucking enemy, to go to prison for something that I said. And I think on that level we can all agree. But just stop with the bullshit. If you want to attack rats, do it the right way. Don't make up shit that never fucking happened. Because all you do is make a clown out of yourself. And what you do to the people that are really trying to bring in awareness, whatever they may be. There's groups that do it. I do it. There's like content creators that do it. I know authors that do it. Filmmakers that do it. You're doing us a disservice who are trying to prove things with factual evidence. Not just shit you come up off the top of your head because you're angry. That's unfair and just not right. So if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. It's as simple as that. Use facts. They're not hard to find. Take the time to do your research. That's all I ask. Do your research. We can always have difference of opinions. We will always have difference of opinions. But opinions, are those things that everyone has. But facts never lie.